While it's really good to innovate and create something out of the box that surprises everyone with how good a story is, or can be, there are those rare moments sometimes where playing in the sandbox and following the guidelines set by those who came before can actually be not only a saving grace, but a breath of fresh air. In a sea of out-of-the-box thinkers, that one-in-the-box project could actually stand out from the crowd and symbolize a sense of normalcy that has been lacking in such a barren wasteland like the cinematic industry. Today, I want to take a look at such an example, Skeleton Crew, and discuss my overall thoughts on it. Without further ado, let's not waste too much time and get into this, shall we? Get your kid's ass out of here. All right, picture this. I'm going to a five-star restaurant. It's a really nice restaurant. And while I don't mind fancy food, I'm usually pretty happy with a basic plain burger, especially if it's good. Now, the question is, does this restaurant even serve burgers? Well, I mean, they do have some really nice fancy meatball dishes and some amazing garlic chicken Alfredo. Guess what? They actually have burgers on the menu. So you know what? I'm going to order the burger. It's a bit expensive, but as long as it's good, then I'm going to be happy, right? Even if I don't think it's worth the price. Hopefully, because of how expensive it is, it's a really good burger. I give the waitress my order and hand her cash. Well, after a half hour of waiting, the waitress shows up with my meal, or at least what she claims is my meal. Yeah, that's right, I ordered a burger, and the waitress walks over and says, "Hey, here's your burger and fries." And instead of a burger, they give me potato soup. Okay, it would be one thing if they came back to me and said, "Sorry, we're out of your order." I would either order something else or leave and find somewhere else to go. But instead, this absolute moron is giving me potato soup, something I don't like and didn't order. And okay, I'll admit this. Sometimes I do like to be surprised with something that I wasn't expecting, and it turned out really good. Heck, I might even like the potato soup if I give it a try. But then I go to smell it, and I can tell that the potatoes in it are rotten green, smelly, and moldy. This is a rotten, disgusting plate of food. And I mean, it would be one thing if it were a burger that was gusting and smelly. But this isn't even what I ordered. And when I refuse to take it and demand my money back, or for them to give me my order, instead of saying, "Sorry, we messed up. We'll fix it for you," they double down and say, "Hey, fatty, this is healthier than that burger, so he didn't like it." Okay, now you just insulted me, and you admitted this is not what I ordered, and yet somehow it is my fault. Yeah, bad. And I demand my money back. Oh, but guess what? No refunds? I either have to eat the trash or go hungry because I have no money since this was super expensive. And here's the thing, right? I must not like the restaurant, and I'm going to stomp out and never return, thanks to the bad meal and the terrible service. What if I told you that at one time this was one of my favorite restaurants? What if I told you I was a loyalist, and while sure I've had a few cheaper, sometimes better burgers and other meals from their competitors, I often always came back here when I had the money because this is just my favorite restaurant. And it was only recently that they started treating me like shit. Insulting me and feeding me garbage while claiming it will be healthier for me, almost pickpocketing my hard-earned cash. What am I going to do? They think because I'm a loyalist that I'm just going to come back anyway, that I'm going to take their slop and like it. And while at first you'd think I'd say no to that, here's the crazy part. I actually came back the next day. And I keep coming back to it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, eventually I grew tired of it, and I'm going to leave and not return. Hell, I'd argue I shouldn't have come back in the first place. Okay, hello. I'm Discord Jedi Knight. And what the hell am I talking about? Well, this whole segment here is an entire analogy from my experience with movie producer corporations, with Disney being that five-star restaurant. Despite loving Pixar and maybe some original Disney movies, the favorite burger was actually for me Star Wars. This analogy, while devilishly convoluted, is actually what's been going on for years now at Disney. And yeah, you might say, well, perhaps you shouldn't have paid before you got your meal. Everyone knows that, especially at a big fancy restaurant. But some places you have to pay up front before you get your meal. And when it comes to movies, this is why you have to do it. If we did it the opposite way, If we had the chance to watch the movie first and then decide based on our experience whether we think it is worth the money for buying the ticket, I don't think half those movies would have been the so-called success they make them out to be. Here rests the fact I wanted Obi-Wan Kenobi's Vader and Luke Skywalker, and you fed me lies and some Sith chit. I wanted the Mandalore and Grogu, and you fed me the Bautatan show. I could go on and on about this, but let's get to the point of this video, shall we? I'm walking down the street and I cross paths with Disney the restaurant, and I see they're actually selling burgers. Hell, it even smells good, and it's even cheaper being on sale. A massive part of me wants to say, screw you. I'm not giving you my money no matter what, but a part of me's hungry, so I decide to take a shot, sit down, and try it. Especially since I'm not paying for it. Yeah, when I first watched the first episode, it was on a former friend's account at his place. And the rest I saw thanks to a family member getting a free Disney subscription with his new iPhone. If they made money off me, it was maybe 10% of a penny, and my time, which is arguably more valuable. And I did a review of the first episode as a former fan of Star Wars. In that video, I stated that this is a case of a broken clock being right twice a day, but it's the exception, not the norm. I have no faith in this restaurant anymore. But I did that review based on my first bite, and my first bite was really good, but now in this video I plan to review the rest of it. I plan to tell you about the aftertaste and whether or not I still think it's good. First things first, let's talk about my point from the intro of this video. Don't get me wrong, without innovation we would never have Star Wars as it stands today. George Lucas truly did something out of the box and provided something amazing and truly inspiring as a storyteller. As many would tell you. Or did he? Let's take a closer look at Star Wars, specifically the first film, A New Hope. It's about some scrawny, whiny boy fighting a magic sword, meeting an old wizard, and fighting an impressive regime of an evil dictator. Huh, sound familiar? Star Wars is not just space and lasers. It's fantasy told through the lens of space opera. It's just a unique lens, and combining the two was indeed out of the box, but the basis of the story was always the hero's journey, a simple writing tool. Innovation isn't really about doing something different. It's about taking what exists and doing something new. There's a fine line between playing with the elements of the old in a new setting, and just never touching the sandbox to begin with. Instead, I argue you should learn the sandbox first, and once that setting is established, then you can deviate a bit more and get a message across through the art of a character. But now there is no such thing as that anymore. If someone says innovative to bring it to a modern audience, they mean let's change it because the old is problematic, and don't actually care about the story or the proper way of how to go about establishing that story. They see the sandbox built, and instead of playing in the sandbox and learning how it works so that they can do something surprising outside it, they often never start in the sandbox, just taking a few iconic units, slapping them on what they perceive a hero to be, and claiming you're the villain when you don't enjoy it. I can't stand it anymore. I left the Star Wars fandom and many things I used to enjoy because of it. But what Skeleton Crew does so well to me is that it is exactly what we wanted. It's like getting what you ordered and finding an extra pickle on the burger. You're not going to be mad there's an extra pickle on your burger that you didn't ask for. You're going to love that surprise. All right, I did say I wasn't going to use that analogy anymore, did I? But it works so well. Sitting down and watching Skeleton Crew, it is at its core a very basic in-the-box type of story. In short, it's about a boy named, when seeking adventure, tired of his bored life. One day, he finds a weird bunker, and he and his friend go exploring. Fern and her friend join in, and they accidentally activate a ship flying through space. Now on board, looking for a way home, they find a droid, 33, who says he doesn't remember where their home is, but says, "All right, I'll take you somewhere for help, since you are the new captain." Fern is the captain, and I like her a lot. Actually, the best part of the entire show's the kids. I got attached to every single one of them. I related to each one of them. I understood, felt bad, felt sad, felt excited, and felt glad to have known these kids through their adventures. When the MC is more or less a representation of the average kid wanting adventure, but is childish and doesn't understand that the grass isn't as green on the other side as he thinks. He learns through his journey what it means to not only have an adventure, but to be brave and care for your friends and family. Neil, despite being an alien, which is really cool, we don't get to say many non-humanoid aliens in Star Wars anymore, is more or less your run-of-the-mill chubby nerd who, despite being weak physically, is an emotional strong, and I like his acts of bravery, like when 33, when nothing he tried stands up to him trying to save the day. That whole episode where he's on a different planet, same with something he never experienced and trying to explain why the kids of the world shouldn't have to fight each other was insightful. He learns that despite not being unhappy with his home, he actually is home he has taken the good life he lived for granted. And I myself going up in the US can relate to this. And I can be thankful for my peaceful life just a bit more. Fern is your typical girl boss character, yes, but not insufferable. She actually has flaws. Her cocky attitude, while does make her the bravest of the group, also makes her at times the most flawed individual. She doesn't like showing it, but she's as scared as everyone else, and by the end her heartfelt moments when she does care for everyone's safety comes off as genuine and real. I like that when she becomes captain, she takes charge and does indeed watch out for her crew, trying to get everyone home safely. Now, the one character I thought I was going to dislike the most actually ended up being my favorite of the group. And that's Gaby. On the outside, she seemed to be just the mean girl. Fern's smart best friend, a trope often seen in many stories. But deep down, she is the most skeptical and realistic person in the group, and for good reason. Turns out she is handicapped. Okay, I have to talk about this aspect. So many claim Star Wars doesn't represent handicaps, even though Luke and his father both got robotic arm replacements. It's ridiculous to claim that Star Wars doesn't have this type of representation. The problem is not the lack of representation, but the overabundance of either no focus or too much focus. And this is how you know if you're doing it correctly or not. If it doesn't serve the story, it shouldn't be there, and it should be removed for time. But if it serves the story and adds to the experience, and doesn't drag the plot but lets you breath and connect on a deeper level, then it should be in there. KB being part electronic and thus needing to be more careful, not being able to do what everyone else can, and having that be part of her character only adds to the overall story. It's a way to have true representation in a correct, organic way, and not just because of an agenda. Her skepticism and careful thinking about how to do things so she and her friends aren't in more danger become clever devices, knowing that it's why her friend from the girl boss is so driven, because she got KB in this mess she feels responsible for it, and wants KB to be safe. But feeling like she doesn't want to treat her different ends up not taking into account her own issues. It was actually, in my opinion, groundbreaking to give this story the proper light it deserved, in a way that didn't feel like you were holding a lightsaber to my throat and telling me what to think. And so when it's time to take a step out of the sandbox and do something special with her character, especially focusing on her handicap, it really adds that extra pickle to the sandwich and makes you not only relate, but want to root for her and her friends all the much more. In other words, this is how you truly innovate. So many will argue that innovating means doing something out of the box and subverting expectations. But I think innovating is actually not just meeting expectations, but going above and beyond them. And when you think back to some of the greatest expectation subversions, yes, a lot of the time you would consider them not the average thing, but I think with a truly mastery surpassing them. There are hundreds of examples in Star Wars I can point to for this, like Anakin turning to the dark side, or Luke saying no to the Emperor. Let's not get off on a tangent. The droid 33 takes them to a pirate lookout, and there we meet a pirate in jail who has abilities. Well, JOD is a shifty and rusting pirate who the kids are more or less forced to put their faith in. Turns out he wants treasure, and the kids come from a treasure planet they didn't even know existed. They journey through the stars trying to get home, only to discover their planet is indeed an old Republic mint that produces credits the Star Wars version of money. To protect the largest and last amount of old Republic treasure, the planet has been hidden for years, but now with the kids, he has a chance to get the treasure he's always wanted. He's not just a run-of-the-mill evil villain, he's a crafty scumbag of a pirate. A scum for sure, but when you hear his story, you can understand why he is. He was a boy who lived in a rut with no money and was constantly hungry not just for food, but for power. And what is the only thing that actually makes someone powerful in society? Money? He's a pirate. He doesn't want to hurt the kids. But at the end of the day, he's in it for himself. And despite feeling sorry for them and actually growing feelings for them, his greed for a better part outshines his caring heart. Being Force-sensitive himself and trained by a Jedi before they were taken by the Empire, JOD becomes an imposing threat at the end when they finally get home. There are also the parents. As adults thinking they know what's right, they often talked down to them and didn't trust the younger crew for good reason. But when the kids return, they have earned so much thanks to their journey, and so when JOD takes over the planet, holding it hostage, it is up to the kids to do the right thing. The parents want to protect them and want them to stand down. When they don't, they learn to trust their kids, as well as the kids learn to trust their parents. They work excellently together to form a plan to contact the New Republic and to get X-Wings to fight off JOD and his pirate crew, ending it with a surprisingly great aftertaste. I love the story, I love KO as a villain, I love the kids, and really appreciate the parents' point of view, especially when they, in the end, trust the next generation to save the day. This was how to subvert expectations correctly. This was, in a sense, a very basic story that in the beginning felt very generic. And yes, while the majority of it was just that, it was so predictable that there was just a small amount of room to step out of the box enough not only to subvert expectations, but to meet and exceed them. I'm going to give Skeleton Crew a 10 out of 10, probably one of the best things I've seen come out in recent years, Star Wars or not. I loved everything about it. There wasn't even an instant where I hated something, and for a lot of it that I did, I feel they were either looking too deep or weren't willing to give a chance in the first place. And to their credit, I'm going to defend them here a bit. If you hate Skeleton Crew, I can understand why. I don't think it's because you do. I think it's because Disney and Lucasfilm have let you down so much that you're just doled out, and all you can see are flaws and don't care about the story anymore. Trust me, I was exactly the same. I didn't care for anything Star Wars anymore. I don't consider myself a fan because of that. But I can't deny that the aroma of that burger drew me in, and I'm happy I ate it. I wish that every project that Star Wars came out with was like Skeleton Crew. And no, it's all right that they have potato soup, something I don't want to buy. It's all right that they want to appeal to more than just me. It's not all right for them to be mad at me when I don't want to buy it and insult me and those like me. But as a loyal customer, or once was I expect something good and usually don't get that anymore. Which is why this was such a treat. Eventually, I stopped going to that restaurant and found another. Adaco shop called Hasbro, and while at first I didn't think it was for me, it's not my hamburger, but it has some good beef, cheese and sauce, and now the taco's my favorite thing over the burger. Star Wars. That's My Little Pony to me in a nutshell. Well, actually, it would be a corn shell, but whatever. When I joined the Unity, I needed a name from FIM, and Discord Jedi Knight is what I went with. And despite not being a fan, I must admit I still love much of the old and have since designed my channel. It's as a Star Wars-themed MLP channel. It's funny because of how much I am disillusioned with Star Wars that I keep that name. But I have mellowed out over the years. I'm not angry, I am at peace. Like Luke, I have rejected my hatred, and now I have become a true Jedi. This YouTube channel isn't about me bashing things I hate, but about talking about what I love. And that's My Little Pony, especially through the old lens of Star Wars. It makes my channel unique and different from the others. I'm going to keep it, but at the end of the day, I left the fandom. Now and then I lift my ear to see if anything heals, and find nothing but more division. So instead of dwelling on that division, I chose to move on and be happy with what I have. Something needs to change, and change dramatically for me to come back as a Star Wars fan. I don't think anything ever will. Instead of demanding it to be fixed, I'm going to step away, grab a taco, and watch some My Little Pony, and enjoy my peas. You think I'm joking about that taco? I'm starving after this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on both Skeleton Crew and anything I had to say in this video. And with that said, never forget, my friends, to be true Jedi and friendship is magic.